am mad. You know what I mean? All right, I'm mad. I feel betrayed, man, but it. You know what I mean? It's a business and I'm gonna carry it like a business.
Y'all, word going around is that Snoop Dogg might be a snitch, and not just any kind of snitch. The latest rumor, he allegedly gave up DMX to the feds. As wild as that sounds, this claim is said to come straight from a leaked federal document, and while it's caught a lot of people off guard, it's not completely out of the blue. Quiet whispers about Snoop not exactly living by the street code have been around for years. Now with this new leak tying him to a confidential informant file, things are heating up again. What's making it even more surprising is who he supposedly snitched on, DMX. A rapper with a well-known history of legal trouble, and someone Snoop once stood beside during their Versus battle, which many fans saw as a genuine moment of respect. At first it feels like a stretch, but when you start piecing together Snoop's past behavior, comments from people around him, and how much DMX went through with the law, the picture gets a little harder to ignore, because this isn't just about one document, it's about a bigger pattern that's starting to take shape. So let's break it all down piece by piece. The idea of Snoop Dogg being a snitch didn't start with this DMX leak. His name has been floating around in those kinds of conversations for years. Some people ignore it, others defend him, but the rumors have never really gone away. One of the earliest public hints came from Suge Knight. In an old interview, Suge didn't mention Snoop directly, but he strongly suggested that certain rappers avoided jail time by cooperating with the authorities. And if you look at the timeline, Snoop had serious legal trouble in the 90s, including a high-profile murder trial. Yet somehow he came out clean, while other artists from the same circle ended up behind bars or under pressure. Snoop may have shut it down, but the questions left behind, they're hard to ignore and honestly pretty valid.
I mean, if you get a guy that constantly getting in trouble and never gonna come to prison, that's because he's an informant, he's a rat, a snitch, you know. And they're more important to the police on the streets than in here.
Then, Tekashi 6ix9ine jumped into the mix and stirred things up even more with one of his trademark Instagram outbursts. On his story, he posted a poll asking fans, "Should I just tell you guys what rappers snitch?" with yes and no as the choices. He followed it up by claiming, "They told me everything when I first got in." The Shade Room later captured the post, and 6699 circled back to the drama by tagging Snoop Dogg directly, writing, "Is Snoop Dogg, hey sir, let's chat." Most people didn't take Tekashi 6699 too seriously when he called out Snoop, mainly because Tekashi is known for trolling and stirring things up online. Snoop clapped back, cursed him out, and called him a rat, telling him to leave him alone.
You better get the off my line, nigga. Rat boy, you really better leave me alone. I ain't the one. No way, no way. Go on and do your shit and get out my way.
At first glance, you'd think Snoop must have been innocent based on how strongly he reacted, but here's the thing, Tekashi's accusation didn't come out of nowhere. He was just repeating something that had already been said before. It just reminded people of what they'd heard years earlier, and some started to revisit old rumors with fresh eyes. And this is where things start to line up with DMX, because when you look at DMX's legal problems over the years, it makes you wonder where the information was coming from. DMX didn't just get caught randomly. These weren't small arrests, they were targeted, and they happened again and again over several years. Now, with a leaked document suggesting that Snoop was involved in giving federal agents inside information, it's only natural for people to start connecting the dots, especially when one of the people hurt by those investigations was DMX. So no, the idea of Snoop snitching on DMX isn't just something pulled out of thin air. Gee. Then there's this one moment that has started to resurface in all this, something Gail Gotti, Corrupt's ex-wife, said a while back. She believes that DMX's hit track Party Up in Here wasn't just a general rant, it was personal. She claimed it was aimed directly at Corrupt, and that Snoop was the one who gave DMX the private details that sparked the track.
So in the song, Y'all Gonna Make Me Lose My Mind by DMX, clearly we all know he was talking about Corrupt. Snoop told DMX all the info on Corrupt. DMX took it and made it his song.
The claim didn't go mainstream at the time, but among certain hip-hop circles, it raised eyebrows. Why would Snoop, who was supposed to be close with Corrupt, pass information to someone outside the camp, especially someone like DMX, who could easily flip it into a diss track? At first, it felt like internal beef, but now with this alleged federal document floating around, that old story starts to feel more relevant. Because if Snoop was willing to leak private information about someone as close as Corrupt to someone like DMX, just to stir the pot or maybe shift attention, it suggests a habit of handing out information when it suits him. And that's exactly what people are accusing him of doing with DMX and the feds. Gail's story adds another layer. It shows Snoop already had access to personal details about DMX's inner circle. If he was close enough to feed him dirt about Corrupt, then he was close enough to know what DMX was dealing with behind the scenes too. And if he knew, the question becomes, who else did he share it with? So in light of the leak, this old claim by Gale isn't just about rap drama anymore. It hints at a deeper pattern, one where Snoop moves quietly, shares selectively, and always seems to stay out of the fire while someone else takes the hit. And in this case, that someone might have been DMX. Which brings us to something that really opens your eyes when you step back and look at it. We all know DMX's run-ins with the law were no secret. Over the years, he got arrested for all kinds of things, drug charges, animal cruelty, tax issues, probation stuff, you name it. Some of it made the news, some didn't. But what really stood out wasn't just how often it happened. It was how the authorities always seemed to know exactly where to find him, even when he was laying low. According to some sources, he was arrested at least once a year for 30 years straight. That's wild when you really think about it. There were times he'd allegedly get picked up right after leaving a show, or during a quiet stay at someone else's property. The timing often felt strange, almost too precise, like someone had tipped them off. It's true DMX made choices that put him at risk, but some of those arrests felt like more than just bad luck. Word on the street is that he once said to himself that people were watching him, and not in a casual way, the kind of watching that leads to surprise raids, last-minute arrests, and legal pressure that just doesn't let up. When you consider the idea that someone in the industry might have been giving law enforcement detailed information, whether it was location, behavior, or affiliations, it starts to explain a few things. And now that Snoop's name is being tied to leaked federal documents, it makes you rethink what really happened to DMX during those years. He didn't just struggle with addiction, he struggled with being a target over and over again, and if someone like Snoop had access to what DMX was doing behind the scenes and chose to share it, it would explain why things often seemed to fall apart just as he was trying to rebuild. And here's where things really start to make you think. While a lot of rappers from Snoop's era were getting caught up in serious cases, somehow he always seemed to come out the other side untouched. He was around the same people in the same places, doing the same shows, but when the dust settled, Snoop was still standing, still smiling, still moving forward. It's not that he was never in trouble, he was, but the outcomes were different. Other artists went to prison, some disappeared from the scene completely, yet Snoop's biggest legal battles either vanished quietly or ended in his favor. And the question people keep asking is how? One might think he was just smart about distancing himself when things got risky, but what if there is more to it, that he had help staying clean, possibly by cooperating behind closed doors? When you pair that with the newly rumored leaked document suggesting he might have been passing information to federal agents, it casts his clean record in a different light. It makes you look at DMX's situation again, how much he struggled, how exposed he was, and wonder why two men with such public lives ended up on such different paths when it came to law enforcement. Maybe he indeed snitched on DMX. Which brings us to the way this alleged news of feds leaking news about Snoop being a snitch feels calculated. It didn't just randomly appear, it came back at a time when more people are paying attention to the history of rap beefs, industry silence, and who really holds power behind the scenes. What's different now is that people are actually looking closer. For years, most fans dismissed these kinds of rumors as gossip, but with social media peeps going all detective mode, it's harder to just brush things off. The internet doesn't forget, and it's connecting dots in ways that weren't possible before. And the fans, they've been connecting the dots too. One comment that pretty much sums up how some people are seeing things now. It read, "The real Snoop Dogg switched up on 2PAC, switched up on Kendrick Lamar, told a fake story about him witnessing Nas and Pac when they were about to go down, exposed by Suge for snitching, got bought by Trump, went at Kanye like he ain't fake, Diddy's friend, such a clown." It might sound harsh, but it reflects growing suspicion among fans who feel Snoop's actions over the years don't match the image he tries to maintain. So when this leak started circulating again, quietly at first, it didn't take long for the conversation to shift. This wasn't just about a snitch label anymore. It was about a real connection between Snoop, DMX, and federal eyes that were watching hip-hop closely during a very specific time. And with DMX no longer here to speak for himself, people are starting to re-examine what really happened during those years, who was around him, who had something to gain from his downfall, and who kept walking away clean. That's why this leak isn't being dismissed the way similar claims were in the past. It's different now, which leaves us with the question that's getting harder to ignore. At this point, the alleged leak, the past accusations, and the behind-the-scenes connections all raise real questions. No one's holding official proof in their hands yet, but the pieces are starting to fall into place for some people. And when you look closely, it doesn't seem as far-fetched as it once did. If Snoop really did pass information that ended up hurting DMX, it changes a lot about how we see both of them and how we look at loyalty in the industry as a whole. So, what do you think? Is this just another rumor, or is there more to the story than most people want to admit? Let us know in the comments. Also, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more.